Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Let me read to you from the president's lawyer's new brief, Neil. They argue the House Democrats have only proven the president did nothing wrong, an appropriate telephone call between Trump and Ukraine.
Yeah, so Ari, the brief is a really remarkable document, and it basically is President Trump's tweets strung together from the last several months and put into a legal brief. It's not an actual legal argument, and it's pretty astounding to me that the President of the United States filed this brief, which basically amounts to him saying, I'm above impeachment. I don't need to be bothered with this, and I don't need to comply with any of the rules and things like that. And so that's like the first punch in this 1-2 punch combo. And the second one, as you just pointed out, McConnell's rules now say the opening arguments are going to be over 2 12-hour blocks, which he's doing on purpose. And this is a crime against the American people, because what it means is that these arguments are going to take place at midnight, in the dead of night. And there's only one reason why McConnell would do that, because he's trying to hide the arguments from the American people. I can't think of something more, anti-democratic for rules. This is one of the most important proceedings in our lifetime, and it's taking place at midnight.
Well, so you're one of the experts that we and others obviously rely on to understand this, because I think everyone knows the difference between things that might claim or in some ways follow a precedent or history, and in other ways fundamentally violate it, whether it's in spirit or technical or otherwise. So I'm curious your view on this piece of it, because I know we're going to hear from Ken Starr and Robert Ray and others how much this does follow the Clinton president. That's been a talking point out of McConnell's office. Your view tonight on how close or far this is from it?
It's very far from it, both democratically because of when we're going to be watching this, but also in terms of, what happened. Before the Clinton impeachment, there was already a massive investigation, dozens of witnesses interviewed, and the like. Here, none of that was allowed to happen because Trump gagged every witness and every document from coming forward. And then President Trump today had the gall to tweet and say, oh, well, the House didn't really want Bolton, and now they want him in the Senate, which is absurd. The House, of course, wanted Bolton. It was just that the president gagged him, as he gagged every executive branch employee. So basically, this is deviating very far in form and in substance from the Clinton precedent. And what I fear is that, when historians read the brief that the president filed, they can only come to one conclusion. And I do think that's true generally of the American people if they read it right now. These briefs are not even close one to the other. The House brief is a masterful work which lays out the case in striking detail, and the Trump brief is basically, hey, I'm above all this.
Senator Conrad, you were there. Same question to you, sir.
This is so very different. When we have a president that says he's done nothing wrong, and you've got 16 or 17 witnesses, mostly from his own administration, confirming that he was pressuring a foreign leader to announce an investigation into his political opponent and using as leverage almost $400 million appropriated by the Congress of the United States for the purpose of helping defend that nation from the Russians. And the president says he's done nothing wrong. What strikes me is that you really have to wonder, does he have the capacity to know the difference between right and wrong? And the difference between the Clinton era and this era, in the Clinton era was about a matter of inappropriate behavior with another person. That's what that was about. This is about something far more dangerous to our democracy. This is about trying to get a foreign leader to weigh in, to investigate a political opponent, and to announce it publicly. Very different.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty clear when you state it like that. On this breaking news of the day limitation, I just want to be crystal clear with viewers because it was breaking right as we came on the air. As I mentioned, federal holidays usually a slower time, but not today with the trial coming. So this is government-related news coming out. And Neil, just to underscore it, based on the initial readouts we're getting and the calculations we're doing, it would appear that if this was expedited as fast as possible, with Mitch McConnell making speed a new rule-regimented priority under these rules that have just been released, it is possible that the bulk of this could technically be completed by this coming weekend, which is quite a contrast to, again, the 15 impeachment trials on record, the Clinton trial, roughly 5 weeks. Is there a point at which, and I don't mean to be too lawyerly, but we have a star lawyer here and a couple of them, but without being too lawyerly, is there a point at which speed, which people do have a right to a speedy trial, everyone's heard of that, is there a point at which speed can be pushed so far that it actually looks like some sort of problem?
Oh, absolutely. So, I mean, I think that's really been the Trump strategy, to try and race this through and without witnesses and the like, to hide really what's happening from the American people. I mean, McConnell's even gone so far as to try and block cameras as the senators are walking to and from, and the House managers and this and that. So this is a war on the American people's right to know that the Senate Republicans have been, had launched last week, and it sounds like from your reporting today, are continuing. And of course, people have a right to a speedy trial, but nobody has a right to a trial that has to, go until midnight. And of course, speedy trial rights, which don't even technically apply to impeachment, but, speedy trial rights, even in the criminal context, also are weighed against other things, including the public's right to know. What's going on here is they're trying to whitewash this. It's not going to work. The CNN poll today just revealed that already a majority of people support the removal of President Trump, and 69% of Americans want witnesses at the trial. And that includes even, I think, 48 or 44% of Republicans saying that. So I think that these tactics aren't working, but I understand why they're doing them. It's because they're afraid of the truth coming out and the American people learning what actually happened in Ukraine.
It is Tuesday, the 21st of January of 2019, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. A small scant dash, a mere pinch of smoked hot Hungarian paprika will make all the difference in the world. Try it. You should. Oh, and if you happen to have the Spanish paprika, it is just as lovely, just so you know. But you don't see that around as much. Not to say that it's better because you don't see it as much. It's just they don't produce as much. Okay. Well, it's Impeachment Tuesday. We are ostensibly to begin this process of a cover-up. I would argue that we're not beginning the cover-up. It already has begun. It's a little rich listening to the arguments that Trump has not obstructed Congress because the Democrats didn't wait long enough. When this guy hasn't released his taxes in how many years? How many years has it been that since he promised he would? And he's the only one who hasn't? Of all the people who held the office, well, since we started doing texts. And so it's the Democrats' fault for not waiting long enough. So the obstruction article is weaker? We'll get out of here. We saw exactly what happened. And we saw exactly what happened in the courts. And when a decision by a court would come out in favor of, we'll say, the Democrats, I would say in favor of America and in opposition to Trump, Trump just ignored them. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what a court says. The courts don't have any standing to God on earth. That's essentially what their defense is. that the Democrats of all people don't have standing. I mean, look at us. We're the other. We're not even Americans. We're the enemy. They embrace Vlad and his minions and tell everybody on their side that we're the enemy. So we can just be disregarded. We're the stupid kids. And they're all the authoritarian, whatever. The teachers are on our side. We're talking about the principal and the vice principal. Maybe even the school secretary. And they think that, gotta take care of all these kids. And even the teachers are kids. They're told what to teach. Very out of that parameter that's been set by the administration, and they'll let you know right now. Oh, you want to teach about the black cowboy? No, we don't do that at this school. That's one of the reasons why everybody says, I never knew about the black cowboys, because, well, when the teachers who wanted to teach it were forced not to. And when I say forced, sometimes they'd be fired. Because if you're going to teach about the black cowboy, what else are you going to teach? We can't have our kids knowing about this stuff. They might think that we're all equal. That we all get due process. Can't have that, apparently. Well, the gun rally on Martin Luther King was quite a show now, wasn't it? 20-some thousand armed militia types descended in that southern capital. Dressed to the nines, too. And when I say dressed to the nines, I'm not talking about a Brooks Brothers suit. Oh, no. We're not talking about that kind of riot. Yeah, we're talking about the .50 caliber kind, a sniper rifle. A .50 caliber sniper rifle. He was described by the astounded media as the belle of the ball. Everybody wanted to see the guy with a .50 caliber sniper rifle, carrying that thing around. Yeah, that's for hunting? No. Is that for self-protection? No, it's for hiding in the dark and shooting someone 2 miles away. Well, maybe not that far, but you could. Personal protection. No, those people went out there to show that they are brown shirt Vichy collaborators, and they determine what polite conversation is. I was reading about a young woman who got arrested for not removing her bandana. First reports, and there were quite a few, is that she was unarmed. It did turn out that she was probably part of this rally of guns on Martin Luther King Day, by the way. Let's not forget that. That wasn't just by accident either. Now, the FBI and other law enforcement agencies arrested 7 or more potential terrorists in that group before the march, in the days leading up to it, because they had certifiable information that these guys were not only planning violence, but were going to actually carry it out. So it could be that maybe out of the 20-some thousand, 25,000, whatever it was, armed militia types, even with the knee pads, they're like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They were all Teenage Mutant Turtles, Ninja Turtles. And maybe they got them all. 7 out of the 25,000. That was all that they had to worry about. Everybody else is just out there cosplaying. I don't think they're out there just cosplaying, because there are some actual state militias that showed up. We're talking about domestic terrorists from out of state, crossing state lines, planning violence. That used to be against the law. So much against the law that they wouldn't just arrest one woman wearing a bandana. Just saying. So, in the initial reportage about this woman wearing a bandana, and she had been told to remove it or, replace it in some other fashion, and she ignored them, they arrested her. But I saw scores, and when I say scores, dozens, scores and scores of armed guys wearing the flag over their face, a flag bandana over their face. The weird road warrior masks that gun types like to wear now. I guess there's some sort of flash protector. You don't get flashed from the gunpowder. I guess that's what that is. And I didn't hear any reports. Now, the police made a big deal about arresting this girl, but I didn't hear any reports of anybody else getting arrested or warned or any of that. So, of course, I posted that I didn't hear anything, and the next thing I know, I'm deluged by gun nuts. Ammo-sexuals is really what they are. Totally spammed, like, who are you to say whether they were or not? And I said, I'm not saying they were or not. I'm just saying that I looked for the police reports and I didn't see any. I didn't see any cop just being interviewed. Oh, yeah, we've been warning all sorts of people. No, we warned this one woman. She wouldn't do what we said 3 times and we arrested her. They made a big deal about that. And, of course, we have to remember what the extreme gun laws that they had to come en masse. 25,000 armed militia types to protest the jackbooted government. And what was the jackboot government going to impose upon the citizenry? This jackbooted extreme impingement upon our rights as individuals and Americans? Background checks, a limit on the number of handgun purchases per month. Communities can ban guns from specific events and venues, and police can take guns from those deemed a risk to others. Okay, background checks. Oh, we got to go have a riot and sedition and turn over all the existing laws because we can't have background checks. Somebody might find out I beat my wife all the time. And then they're going to take my gun away because I beat my wife all the time. Just because I beat my wife all the time doesn't mean that I should be without protection from when the liberal commies come to kill us in our sleep. This is what they amassed an army for on Martin Luther King Day. Well, it's a twofer. One is they can conflate any kind of reasonable gun reform into something so outlandish, and at the same time tell everybody, Martin Luther King? You think you're honoring Martin Luther King? We have 25,000 massively armed individuals, and we'll tell you what polite conversation is. And as far as I can tell, they did. Apparently no violence did occur. There wasn't the beatdowns they had in Charlottesville. Or, people getting run over, by idiots in their cars and killed, like they did Heather Heyer. But the message was still sent. They could amass 25, 30,000 or so individuals, heavily armed from out of state, cross state lines. And if there's a riot, well, we do know already there's some very fine people. Very fine people. What's on the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy? Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. Well, that was Neil Cattell at the top. Basically expressing the Midnight McConnells. Moscow Midnight McConnell. Moscow Mitch. His impeachment approach is a crime against the American people, and it is. On the rest of the menu, the GOP is working to block voters in Texas, Ohio, and more ahead of the November elections. Well, I would say, when have they never done that? The American College of Physicians called for the U.S. to assure coverage for all. Oh, my. And Tesla disputed claims by a California man that all 3 models of the company's cars suddenly speed up on their own without the driver touching the accelerator pedal. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where illegal loggers in Mexico are suspected in the disappearance of an activist dedicated to protecting the famed Monarch butterfly. And a new coronavirus outbreak spreads in China. Oh no, they process all of our pork now, don't they? And our chickens, too. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the rightish of the page is our chat room link right there by the social media scroll. And the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. To the leftish of the chat room link at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you will hopefully find the link to our Patreon page. Please do become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio. You know, just the cost of an espresso-type coffee drink, if you could send those funds our way, it does more than just help us pay our bills. It also puts money into the fund to buy newish machinery. Oh, my God. And we do. Though the bulk of what we do here at Netroots Radio comes out of our own wallets, we would truly be unable to do this without you because you are our biggest contributor. We don't get the George Soros money. We don't get the money that the Young Turks get. I don't know if we would ever take that kind of money anyway. Soros we would. I'm still waiting for the Soros checks from the 80s, by the way. And I've been tabulating the interest. And it has really, it's shall we say, it's accrued over time to a vast amount. And I will collect one day. Until then, we have to rely upon your generosity because you are truly our largest and biggest and really only contributor outside of what we do. And we thank you for your generosity. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, it is so simple because Tom did it, and he does it now too, and you can find us at Netroots Radio. Tom, thank you for taking care of that part of our social media platforms. And Kelly takes care of Facebook and what is it, Tumblr and Instagram? Instagram? I think Tumblr just sort of like exists there for us, and things go there when they go there. But I know that Kelly takes care of a lot of the other social media aspects, and we thank both of them for all the work that they do. You can follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam, and I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Co's about 10 minutes before showtime, and then get that posted on social media. Part of that social media aspect is that you can follow our show on Twitter at Cookbook West, because the show notes and links diary gets posted there as well. And you can also, and most importantly, pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, etc., 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 etc. Okay. Let us get into this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. Once again, I'm sorry that, there's so much news out there. We had to make a choice, editorial choices, and then get ourselves into a bubble because the impeachment analysis is occurring right now. And we're leading up to some public something. I don't know what Mitch McConnell is going to allow. Will he even allow a sketch artist? Before we get into this first article, I'm also curious, the senators, by pain of arrest, punishment of arrest, they have to sit there quietly? You mean as in previous impeachments for judges and the other two presidents, the senators won't get to ask questions. What? Well, Mitch is going by the letter of the law now, isn't he? Because he is a master of process. Moscow Midnight Mitch. This first offering here comes out of the Associated Press. Democrats believe they have a shot at making gains this year in Republican-dominated Texas, including winning control of one house of the legislature for the first time in nearly 2 decades. Persuading voters isn't their only challenge. Voting and registration rules crafted by Republicans in recent years also could prove to be a big obstacle. In a state that's growing rapidly in population and diversity, oh my God, Covenant! Officials have closed hundreds of polling places, taken steps toward removing thousands of registered voters from the rolls, imposed strict voter identification requirements, and made it more expensive to put early voting sites on college campuses, all in the name of election integrity. Well, without that type of election integrity, the Republicans would lose their seats of power now, wouldn't they? The bottom line in Texas is Republicans are scared to death of demographic changes. No wonder it's a covenant to them. And are doing anything and everything they can to keep changing demographics from affecting elections. And that was Anthony Gutierrez, Executive Director of Common Cause in Texas. Nationally, Democrats say strict voter ID laws, purging of voter laws, reduction in polling places, limits on early voting, and other restrictive steps are Republican attempts to suppress their voters. Republicans counter that they are merely trying to maintain the integrity of elections and close off potential avenues of voter fraud. Well, I can see their point, because whenever there's been any kind of voter fraud, their people are the one doing it. Yeah, I know you might be able to find one that was voting for a Democrat when they shouldn't have been. But when they start looking into these voter frauds, and I got to tell you, it's just like 1 out of how many millions? Or 2. But regardless, it's always somebody like voting for Trump 8 or 10 times. Just to be sure, my vote was counted, was their defense. I'm just saying. When they look into this voter fraud, so maybe because the voter fraud occurs so often from their side, they think the whole world is doing it. That's their mindset. Because they're stealing from the government, they think that we're stealing from the government. When they're bribing foreign officials, they think everybody should be able to bribe foreign officials because everybody's doing it anyway now, aren't they? Whenever they want to have a law or restriction, 9 times out of 10, and I would actually say 10 times out of 10, they are doing it themselves, and they figure everybody is. In North Carolina, litigation over a voter ID requirement passed by Republicans has created uncertainty over whether it will be in place for the November elections. In Georgia and Wisconsin, voter advocacy groups have sued over efforts to revoke the registrations of voters who have not participated in recent elections. And in Texas, Democrats are suing over a ban on mobile polling places. Attention on state efforts to expand or restrict voting access has been heightened since 2013, when the U.S. Supreme Court eliminated some key protections of the Voting Rights Act because John Roberts only calls balls and strikes. Before that ruling, Texas was among 9 states with a history of racial discrimination that needed clearance from the federal government before making significant changes to their voting laws. In other words, when that state struck out, John Roberts said, come on, forget it. We don't do strikes here anymore, only balls. Get back up to bat. remind folks about this gun rally that took part on Martin Luther King Day. When I gave that list of what was the extreme gun reform that caused a whole army of tens of thousands to descend upon the state capitol to protest the jackbooted edicts that were being imposed. The jackbooted edicts were voted upon by the state electorate. They want those laws. And out-of-state actors, armed out-of-state actors, anti-government extremists, were essentially given a platform to petition their government. It's so, we're on some sort of weird time dimension where every possibility in the quantum level is existent right now, right where we right where we stand. All right, let's get into this offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. It's actually finally some good news. Ricardo Alonso Zaldivar of the Associated Press brings us this offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. With healthcare an election year priority, a major doctors organization called for sweeping government action to guarantee coverage for all, reduce costs, and improve the basic well-being of Americans. Well, first we have to define what are Americans. And that'll take a lot of time, maybe, I don't know, an age or two. Declaring the U.S. healthcare system is ill and needs a bold new prescription, the American College of Physicians endorsed either of the two general approaches being debated by Democratic presidential candidates: a government-run single-payer system that would cover everyone, or a new public option government plan that would offer comprehensive coverage to compete with private insurance. But the group's president, Dr. Robert McLean, said his organization is not signing on to specific proposals such as Sanders' Medicare for All bill or Biden's combination of a public option, improvements to Obamacare, and deputizing Medicare to negotiate prescription drug prices. Instead, he said, the group arrived at its recommendations by analyzing available evidence on what might best address the nation's problems with high costs, gaps in insurance coverage, uneven quality, and mind-boggling complexity. Oh, my God! You mean these people are actually thinking and doing the adult approach? Don't they know what government we are in now? We think there is a realistic chance that either of these two approaches could get us to a much, much better place, said McLean. It is not looking to be partisan, but I would say it is unavoidably political because policy is political. One problem that Sanders' plan poses for McLean's group is its reliance on Medicare rates, which are well below what private insurance pays. Well, maybe private insurance is being gouged. Although less well known than the American Medical Association, the group represents doctors who are critical in the healthcare system. Its 141,000 members in the U.S. are internal medicine specialists, focusing on adults from Medicare recipients to people in their working years covered by employer plans. Well, they don't have any clout. They don't know anything. The only people you should be listening to are doctors or like orthopedic surgeons, the highest paid of those specialists should have the voice for the whole of the associations. I mean, come on, internal medicine, people taking care of people? Doctors have traditionally been central in the nation's healthcare debates. The AMA's approval helped President Barack Obama pass the Affordable Care Act, and physicians' groups were a core element of the coalition that blocked Donald Trump's efforts to repeal it. And fortunately, these physicians' groups stand as a stalwart, a bulwark, against the ongoing efforts to repeal the ACA. This final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy comes our way by the Associated Press. Tesla is disputing claims by a California man that all three models of the company's cars can suddenly speed up on their own without the driver touching the accelerator pedal. Tesla said it checks when drivers report that their car accelerated on its own, and in every case where the company has the car's data, it drove as designed. The company also claimed that the man who filed the petition with federal safety officials is a short seller of Tesla shares, referring to investors who borrow shares in a company stock and try to profit by replacing them after the share price falls. On Friday, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration said it would look into a petition filed by Brian Sparks of Berkeley, California, and decided whether to open a formal investigation. Sparks' allegations cover about 500,000 Teslas, including Model 3, Model S, and Model X vehicles in model years 2013 through 2019. Sparks said Tesla owners have lodged 127 complaints with the government, covering 110 crashes and 52 injuries. Tesla, which did not respond when asked for comment, posted a statement on Monday yesterday saying its electric vehicles do not accelerate on their own. The company called the petition completely false, adding that the car accelerates if, and only if, the driver told it to do so, and it slows or stops when the driver applies the brake. Sparks said in his 69-page petition that many of the Tesla accidents happened during parking, that the complaint rate was much higher than that for other vehicles, and that Tesla refused to share the car's data with owners after incidents. The highway agency has yet to verify the complaints. The people who filed complaints were not identified in the NHTSA's database. Well, we better get to our break. And when we get back from that break, we are going to go through weather from around the world, and we are going to finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
In 2017, approximately 1 in 6 high school students reported a sports or physical activity-related concussion. Immediate symptoms of a concussion include headache, nausea, and double vision. Long-term, the effects of such injuries, particularly those that are more severe, can be life-changing. Healthcare providers, coaches, trainers, and parents should be aware of the symptoms of a concussion and how to treat them. A concussion protocol should be developed that includes withholding an athlete from practice and competition until all symptoms are resolved. While concussions cannot always be prevented, they can be treated in a way that decreases the chances of long-term health problems. Thank you for joining us on A Minute of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, it's Tom. Could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com? All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. It doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution. And you'll get a wondiferous pair of Netroots radio stickers for application to your backpack, your bumper sticker, or your banjo. Well, it's up to you which backpack you want to put it on. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage, because you are our biggest donor. netrootsradio.com. Together, we are Resistance Radio.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 2000. Just after midnight, 600 police officers clashed with picketing longshoremen in Charleston, South Carolina. The port in Charleston ranked the 4th largest in the United States. While South Carolina is one of the states with the lowest union membership, the port is an exception. The picketers were predominantly African Americans. They were represented by the International Longshoremen's Association, Local 1422 and 1771. That January, a Danish company, Nordana, announced they would unload their ships with non-union labor. The company had used union labor for more than 2 decades. 600 police were on hand to watch over 20 scabs brought in to unload the ships. The police force included helicopters and armored personnel vehicles. The longshoremen held a meeting to discuss their response. A picket of longshoremen was set up at the port. The police violently opposed the picket. They hurled gas grenades and racial epithets. They savagely beat Ken Riley, the president of Local 1422. 5 union members were arrested and charged with felony rioting and faced 5 years in prison despite a lack of evidence. And they were placed under house arrest for more than a year. They became known as the Charleston Five. The South Carolina Attorney General vowed to make an example of these workers. He promised jail, jail, and more jail, and even going as far as comparing them to terrorists. The labor movement in South Carolina and beyond rallied to their defense. Yellow bumper stickers and billboards reading "Free the Charleston Five" could be spotted throughout the state. A plan developed to conduct actions at ports across the world to support these men and their right to picket. Faced with an outpouring of support, South Carolina reduced the charges to a misdemeanor and a $100 fine.
I read the news today, oh boy.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
Welcome to the impeachment trial of Donald John Trump, beginning January 21st, 2020, 3 years and 1 day after he took the oath of office. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell on Monday finally began circulating proposed rules which would give each side 24 hours over just 2 days to present their arguments, with no guarantee of witnesses. Senators will then get 16 hours to question the House impeachment managers and Trump's legal team, then 4 hours to debate whether to call witnesses. If a majority then votes for witnesses, the two sides will make motions for the witnesses they want to testify, followed by votes on whether to subpoena them. The rules are similar to those used in former President Bill Clinton's trial, although unlike in that trial, evidence from the House inquiry will not automatically be admitted. Democrats accused McConnell of rushing the trial and hiding evidence. These rules will likely have the Senate in session all night and into the early morning hours as it tries Trump for high crimes and misdemeanors. Here's the tentative schedule for day one. In the early afternoon, Democrats and Republicans have their party lunches in the Capitol. At around 1 p.m., Mitch McConnell will offer his resolution, which will detail the rules for the Senate's trial. Each side then has an hour for debate. At around 3 p.m. Eastern, Chuck Schumer, the Senate Minority Leader, will move to amend the rules package to allow for witnesses and documents at the front end of the trial. That's also subject to debate for an hour on each side. We don't know exactly how Schumer's going to try to amend the rule package. He can force one vote or multiple votes seeking to amend the package in different ways. The Democrats' priority is to force votes on guaranteeing witnesses and document production as part of the trial, but their efforts to amend the package are almost certain to fail. Once Democrats finish trying to amend the rules, there will be a vote on the package, and the trial will then begin. Those Republicans most likely to opt for fairness, well, 3 of them are looking as if they may do the right thing. Senators Susan Collins of Maine, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, and Mitt Romney of Utah have been at the center of a media frenzy for weeks. In order to change the rules, though, they'll need a 4th Republican to join them. The best bet? Well, it comes from a group of veteran Republicans who either believe in protecting the Senate or are retiring and thus have less to fear from a vengeful Trump. This group includes Senators Lamar Alexander of Tennessee, Rob Portman of Ohio, Roy Blunt of Missouri, and Pat Toomey of Pennsylvania. And if you're planning on watching gavel-to-gavel coverage of the impeachment trial, that might not be so easy this time around. So much for that First Amendment. Capitol Hill press access restrictions, big restrictions, are being put into place, beginning with a magnetometer in the Senate gallery, which means that reporters must wait in line to enter and leave the chamber, something that will undoubtedly cause a noisy disruption to what's supposed to be a solemn trial, and a delay in the public receiving information about what's happening in the chamber. I know you're thinking at least there's C-SPAN. Not so fast, my freedom-loving friends. The Senate and House control the C-SPAN cameras in their respective chambers. McConnell has made it clear that he'll use that control aggressively. Stay tuned, I guess. A new CNN poll released Monday shows that 51% of Americans believe the Senate should vote to convict and remove the president from office during this impeachment trial. 45% believe the Senate should vote against conviction and removal. Almost 69% say the trial should include testimony from new witnesses who didn't appear before the House impeachment investigators. Republicans, though, are split on whether there should be witnesses at the trial. 48% are in favor of new witnesses, 44% are not. This was the first major national phone poll conducted since the articles of impeachment were sent to the Senate and since Lev Parnas, the indicted Rudy Giuliani associate, appeared on cable news shows and implicated Trump in the Ukraine pressure campaign. The Washington Post has updated its fact-checker database, writing on Monday, quote, 3 years after taking the oath of office, Donald Trump has made more than 16,200 false or misleading claims, a milestone that would have been unthinkable when we first created the fact-checkers database that analyzes, categorizes, and tracks every suspect statement he has uttered. The current total is 16,241 and growing. Now, lawyers for Lev Parnas, the Soviet-born businessman who was involved in the campaign to pressure Ukraine to investigate political rivals of Trump, asked on Monday that Attorney General William Barr disqualify himself from overseeing his criminal case because he has too many conflicts of interest. Parnas' lawyers wrote to Mr. Barr, Mr. Parnas, who was charged in October in Manhattan with violating federal campaign finance laws, requested that a special prosecutor instead be appointed to handle his case. It is in the public interest to remove this matter entirely from the Department of Justice. Makes sense to me. The United Nations Human Rights Committee has ruled that refugees fleeing the effects of climate change cannot be sent home by their adoptive countries. This landmark decision gives new legal power to displaced people around the world and squarely positions the climate crisis as a humanitarian issue. News of the ruling comes as global leaders gather in Davos, Switzerland for the annual World Economic Forum. This year's focus at the forum is climate change, and Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg took the stage Tuesday to admonish world leaders for doing, quote, basically nothing to reduce carbon emissions. Protesters in Puerto Rico are demanding the resignation of their new governor, Wanda Vazquez, after the discovery of a warehouse filled with supplies thought to be from 2017's Hurricane Maria. Vazquez fired 3 members of her cabinet after the discovery, including the director of Puerto Rico's Office of Emergency Management and the secretaries of Family Services and Housing. Officials began distributing the Hurricane Maria supplies Monday. The island's Department of Justice will be investigating how the supplies ended up languishing for years while citizens on the island struggled. And in celebration of Martin Luther King Jr. Day, 8 of the 2020 Democratic presidential candidates marched together in South Carolina on Monday to honor the slain civil rights leader. Joe Biden, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, Amy Klobuchar, Pete Buttigieg, Tom Steyer, Deval Patrick, and Tulsi Gabbard all linked arms and marched together. If they can do it, so can we. And that's just a bit of what's news for now. I'm Nicole Sandler. If you appreciate these reports and the Nicole Sandler Show, I hope you'll consider making a contribution. My work is 100% listener supported, and I can't do it without your help. Find out more at NicoleSandler.com, and please click on that donate button.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 40 degrees Fahrenheit with rain. Lots and lots and lots of rain. Looks like we're going to get about almost a quarter inch today and tonight. Winds are light and variable currently out of the due east. And we were under a wind advisory. Let me check that out real quick to see if we are still currently in it. No, we are not. We had been in a wind advisory, but that has been taken off. Winds will, though, pick up in a couple of hours and shift out of the south at 5 to 10 miles per hour, and will continue so throughout the day, turning light and variable tonight, and then picking up out of the east-southeast at 5 to 10 miles per hour, bringing with it about another quarter inch of rain. We're going to have rain for all the days that I can see in the future, which on this Weather Underground graph is about 7 days. Currently, the pollen is rated at none. Air quality index is good at 37 parts per million, and the daytime UV index is low at 2. Barometric pressure is falling at 29.92 inches. Visibility is down to 4 miles, and relative humidity is at 91%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. London is 44 and sunny. Paris is 40 degrees and sunny. Rome is 55 and sunny. Kyiv is 40 degrees and mostly cloudy. Kabul is 25 and they have lots of fog. Hong Kong is 62 and mostly cloudy. Tokyo is 40 degrees and clear. Sydney, Australia is 71 and clear. San Francisco, California is 51 and cloudy with a wind advisory of gale force winds offshore and on the bay, and copious amounts of water falling from the sky, so take care. And New York is 25 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Anonymous worker bees at Reuters bring us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A Mexican human rights organization urged authorities to investigate the disappearance of an environmental activist dedicated to protecting the famed Monarch butterfly, suggesting the case may be linked to illegal logging in the area. Homero Gomez, who manages a butterfly sanctuary in the western Mexican state of Michoacan, disappeared on January 13th. The organization has asked the Attorney General's office to determine if Gomez's disappearance is linked to his role in defending Mexico's forest. He was probably hurting the business interests of people illegally logging in the area. Commission official Métis Cardona told Reuters illegal logging and trafficking is rife in the area of Michoacan, a state plagued by organized crime. The investigation is ongoing, a source with the state prosecutor said. Environmentalists say illegal logging hurts the habitat of the monarch butterfly, which migrates thousands of kilometers from Canada across the United States to reproduce in Mexico.
Je te donne, c'est mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers, c'est tout.
Even more anonymous worker bees at Reuters bring us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A new virus outbreak in the city of Wuhan has spread to other parts of China, with 6 people confirmed dead, to the alarm of global health authorities and financial markets, which is the only important ones we care about now, don't we? Little is known about the coronavirus strain, though human-to-human transmission has been confirmed. Some experts say it may not be as deadly as some other coronavirus, such as SARS, which killed nearly 800 people worldwide during a 2002-2003 outbreak that also originated from China. Authorities have reported 6 deaths, all in Wuhan City, among more than 300 confirmed cases in China, mostly in the same area. There have been 5 cases in the national capital of Beijing. Symptoms include fever, coughing, and difficulty breathing. Beyond China, Thailand has reported 2 cases and South Korea 1, all involving Chinese travelers from Wuhan. Japan and Taiwan also confirmed 1 case each, both involving nationals who had been to Wuhan. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. But you do know that Netroots Radio is going to broadcast on, and we will meet up tomorrow for Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. We'll meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, 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 dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum, ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. jardin d'hiver, dans mon jardin d'hiver, dans mon jardin d'hiver.